Shut up and sit down.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening from wherever you're listening across the world. Welcome to another episode of Just Ball Things in the off-season. With me today, as always, from his lovely home in... I'm not going to give that away for the people. You'll get
Don't give the address.
is the J-Man Jack Manuel. How are you, buddy?
I'm well. How are you, Clark Kent?
Hey, new glasses. I've got another pair. A pair that's much bigger than these. Unfortunately, I suffer from the same thing you suffer from, Jack, and it's big head syndrome. So therefore, I need huge glasses. My other pair, the Levi's that I have. Also, if you don't need glasses, you don't want glasses. They're hella expensive. There's like two pairs, $350. I think it'll cost me all told. Oh man, for what is honestly such a pain in the ass. I mean, I'm 26 years old. There are people who've been living with glasses their whole life and now we're just yelling into their, like, thank you. I feel your plight. But I put my glasses on Chelsea. Oh man, it's just like novelty glasses that you see, like New Year's Day glasses. Oh man, it's very funny. I'll have to post a pic one day because I remember trying out her glasses, and obviously hers are suited for her very small face, and I have a very large face, Jack, as discussed. Yeah, it's a time. I think that's why my glasses cost so much. There's so much more manufacturing involved in the frames and the lenses. They're just so much bigger. But yes, only for short sight. I only need it for at the computer, so you're not going to see me any other time with them on. That being said, the people only see me in front of a computer. Let's get started, Jackie boy.
Let's do it.
You can contact us on Twitter at JBTNick or at the J-Man JBT, just below there, just below our names. That is the wrong side, but that's okay, Jackie boy. Thank you.
I'm so used to it. Oh man, because you're that way for me, but then you're that way.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's mirrored or something. It's crazy. We're also closely affiliated with OTG Basketball. They've got an awesome podcast network and news website where you can keep up to date with all things NBA. Give them a follow on Twitter at OTG Basketball and on YouTube as well, where you can catch all episodes of Just Ball Things at OTG Basketball, as well as all the episodes of the outlet as well. Facebook.com/JustBallThings. Give us a like and a follow there. And JBT Podcast at gmail.com. Send us an email. We'll read them out here on the show. Anything you want to see us discuss, let us know. All right, let's get cracking here, buddy boy, because the chicken is in the oven, and we need to get cracking. Now it's time for the Busick-Manuel scale. For those of you who are new, this is a scale that sums up how likely things are to happen in the NBA. We scale it on alternative fact, Twitter fact, Wikipedia fact, or just a straight up fact. Thank you, Jackie boy, for wearing repping the brand. I'm repping my Pink Floyd t-shirt. $5 from Kmart. I'm not ashamed. Jackie boy. Is this a Brooklyn Bits?
It is Brooklyn Bits, mate. Let's dance.
Ooh.
Let's vibe.
Ooh, Jackie boy, that absolutely slaps. If Brooklyn were to attain James Harden. Yes, that's right, you heard me. James Harden, there'd be no stopping them next season.
So this is via Mr. Josh Hart of the New Orleans Pelicans, who put it out on his own Twitter page. And he's like, 2020 belonged to the pandemic or whatever. 2021 is going to belong to the Brooklyn Nets. And Nick, this is a goddamn fact, big boy. It's going to be over if the Brooklyn Nets were to get Jimmy H in that goddamn glorious bid. He would come to New York. He'd love the strip clubs. Get around the Manhattan strip joints for Jimmy H. He could bring all the Kardashians if he's still hanging out with any of them. I don't know if he actually is. But to be honest, Nick, I said this on last week's pod or the Brooklyn Buzz. I do a lot of podcasts. I get confused. I put out there that if the Brooklyn Nets were to get James Harden, it would form the best big three of all time. Now, I got flamed, and I deserve to get flamed because I didn't provide any nuance. But Twitter isn't for nuance.
No,
Podcast is for nuance. This is where I provide the nuance. And go check out Nick, OTG Nick, at OTG Nick. He provides the nuance where I've brought it on the Brooklyn Buzz. Basically, Nick, I'll put to you, when was the last time a Big Three didn't ever win a championship? Just give me one. When? When has it happened, mate? Miami Heat.
My basketball history is, it's pinpoint.
But like, there's literally, you look at the history of Big Threes, and let's go modern history, Miami onwards. Big Three in Miami won 2 chips. They were supposed to win 7 or 8. Well, they still got a couple. Who cares? Golden State, obviously, with their Big Three. Cleveland with their Big Three, Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving, and LeBron James. The Brooklyn Nets, if they don't win one, it would be going against historical trends. Now, I'm going to have clear subjective biases because of my clear affiliation with this basketball team. And I do understand there are likely to be some cons to this in terms of losing the immense depth that the Brooklyn Nets do currently have. Losing any sort of defensive prowess that they might have had, having 3 guys who, while KD was a good defender in Golden State, coming off an Achilles injury, you don't expect him to show that defensive prowess. Kyrie Irving gets cooked in the pick and roll. James Harden is best in the post. He ain't going to be defending in the post if DeAndre Jordan's going to be starting. Hopefully we get to keep maybe Joe Harris, and then Joe Harris becomes the defensive player of the year. He's won everything else. He's damn good at everything else. He's going to win the defensive player of the year. I'm just bringing takes aplenty. He's
won everything else, says Jackie Boy. Everything.
Yes. In my heart and in my subjective multiverse, he has won every single award there is. Now, are those basketball awards, or are those awards created by me and my delusional mindset? Probably the latter. But anyway, this ain't about Joe Harris. You can chill. Brooklyn Buzz, I give plenty of love to Joe Harris. In saying that, Nick, it is a clearly competitive race. And the rumors around Drew Holiday, we've spoken about. There's rumors around Aaron Gordon. There's rumors about all these guys that can add some depth and add some clear prowess and level up the Brooklyn Nets to what they are. If you have an MVP caliber player in Kyrie Irving, you have a finals MVP, 2-time finals MVP in Kevin Durant, and you have James Harden, one of the top 5 players in the NBA, there's not going to be a defense in the NBA that can stop him. The best defense in the history of this goddamn sport ain't going to stop him. I don't care if you got Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, you got freaking Dr. Julius Erving back there. Nothing stopping KD and Kyrie. There is and James. I'm going to call him James just because I want to be formal. Because he's not on my team yet. I'm not going to give him any slang yet.
And no one calls him Jimmy. You call him James and you're just like, you know what, I'll do the right thing and call him. Everyone calls him James. It's just
I'm providing the level of respect that a player of his caliber deserves. Clearly, I've had many a gripe with James Harden. Those would go to the total wayside. I would sell myself out, like we have said about this podcast aplenty. If we're going to sell out 20, we're goddamn doing it. And if the Brooklyn Nets get James Harden, he's going to become my favorite player. I'm going to grow this beard out as long as it could goddamn go. I'm going to need maybe some of your facial hair expertise there. And I'm going to turn into a James Harden stand-in believer. 15 3 throws a night, baby. It's beautiful, crisp, efficient basketball.
God, you're such a simp. You are such a simp. You'll be the only subscriber to James Harden's OnlyFans. That is for sure.
Yes, and many other Brooklyn Nets fans. And I've already got the Joe Harris one going, so I might as well subscribe to James too.
Oh, man, that was
a spiel.
That was a tough listen. I'll tell you that much. I don't blame you if 9 minutes after this podcast, all you heard was Glasses talk about some chicken. And then you hear Jack just give his freaking monologue about James Harden to...
How long was that? I felt like I went really
absolutely groveling. Oh, man. Is it over for the NBA? I mean, sure, because... sorry. Does Josh Hart think it's over? Because, sure, if this was a 2K league... Then if you could manage to get Kyrie, KD, and James Harden on the same team, then you're probably kicking goals at some point, or
kicking goals,
kicking goals, or shooting baskets. Shoot the basket, shoot the field goals right for a home run or something.
There we go. Nice sports knowledge there, Nicholas.
Yeah, so of course, on paper, it's always going to look better. You've got 3 ball dominant people on the court. I'll give you a big 3 that didn't work out. OKC, that had 2 of these 3 players that you're talking about.
They were like 15 years old, Nick.
Yeah, but they also got Ibaka, if you want to count that as the part of the big 3.
And we're going to get Ibaka now, apparently. You're going to sign for the taxpayer MLE. Big 4, Nick. Big 4.
Big 4. Big 5 with DeAndre.
Yeah.
Big 5.
Big 5 with Joe Harris, please.
Joe Harris, sorry. Yeah, he can play center. Yeah, you've got Kyrie who will be playing point. How I see this going down is Kyrie playing point, Kevin playing a sort of, I guess, a LeBron James-ish role if you were to compare the Kyrie and LeBron era. How Kyrie was still ball dominant, but LeBron was still the guy. KD will still get his shots, and Harden needs to be 110% off ball. And that's the problem. This is the problem that I see with this, because as great as an off-ball player that James Harden is, he's been reluctant to be put into that role at the Rockets. And I mean, we haven't. Of course he has.
But he's been reluctant, but I don't think it's necessarily by choice, because listening to different podcasts and doing research about this, because it's the best news I've had since Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were on the team. And no, since Shane Larkin was on the team. Shout out to Shane Larkin. No, there's a deep cut from my fans out there. James Harden I think it was a 2018 All-Star game. They do their like media reps and stuff. In that game, he was having a chat with Steph Curry, and Steph Curry was like dapping him up, and then Steph Curry gets asked, he's like, "Oh, what were you chatting about with James Harden there?" He's like, just telling him how much I respect him, and man, I'm like, you're going to play a little bit off the ball, my guy. He's like, man, I'm not against that. I'm happy to do that, but this is what the team needs me to do. I want to play off the ball a little bit more. We've seen how good he is as an off-ball player in OKC. I don't think it's necessarily by virtue. I think that it was maximized because we saw how good the Houston Rockets have been when he is the lead ball handler with a usage of 98%. Now, in a Mike D'Antoni and Steve Nash system where we've heard Steve Nash say that he's predicating on ball movement, predicating on pace and space, there is going to be no one, but those are 3 of the best ISO players in the league, for one. But also, if you have Kyrie driving in as one of the best drivers in the NBA and kicking out to James Harden, who is maybe the best volume 3-point shooter in the league, Joe Harris, the best 3-point shooter in the league, and Kevin Durant, who could shoot over freaking Rudy Gobert and anyone who's 7 foot or above, the offense. I think the offense isn't going to be a problem, to be honest, Nick. I think it's defense.
But it's the role that he'll play on this team. And I don't think that he'll be happy with that, and therefore won't accept the trade.
I disagree completely. It's literally been put out, I think, by Woj in one of the tweets. And I don't know if you're playing the James Harden tape now. And obviously, the James Harden tape shows how. Are we playing the James Harden tape? I
was. I mean, it's been playing for 10 minutes, so I thought I'd give the people a rest.
But in saying that, I think that he's literally said before, and I read a lot of long-form NBA articles. I remember reading one by Howard Beck at the start of this season, which feels like goddamn a decade ago. The concept of time, my spiel might as well have lasted 3 weeks in how long it felt like that took and how long I was speaking for. But my point being, he said in that piece that for him all that matters is an NBA championship. And now, if the Houston Rockets can't get some sort of value in return for Russell Westbrook, which seems incredibly unlikely. What? Nicholas Batum and Cody Zeller? Cody Zeller's a good pick and roll partner. I reckon we'll get some Clint Capella style pick and roll combinations there. It ain't going to happen. What, Julius Randle and Bobby Portis are going to be providing value for James Harden? No, it ain't going to happen. And I've had people literally slide in my DMs and tell me that they think it's a done deal and they've got their own sources. That's how much people are enthused about this. Now, I completely agree that there's going to be a lot of kinks, and the kinks will have to be sorted out. But talent matters, Nick. It's all that matters in the NBA. Yep. At the end of the day, if you have 3 of the best 10 or 15 players in the league everything else sorts itself out. You get vet minimum guys that can play a little bit of defense. You get Serge Ibaka to buy in and play a little bit of defense. I think it's better than going for Drew Holiday and losing a Karis LeVert. I'd rather go all in, throw all my chips in there, because we've spoken about Bradley Beal on this podcast as well. I'm not saying that there aren't going to be some kinks to sort out, and I can be I'll probably provide maybe a little bit more objectivity when I talk about it on the Brooklyn Buzz. Look at it from both sides, talk to my fellow favorite Nick Fay about it. But for now, there's just an enthusiasm around the Nets fan base, and this would this make them bigger villains than the Miami Heat, Nick, and their big three? What do you think? Or Golden State?
I don't buy into that bullshit. If Harden wants to go there, I hate the fact that Golden State became the rivals because they got Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant to me, Golden State were rivals because of the things that Draymond and Kevin Durant were saying in the public eye, like just being blasé, being quite frankly dicks. And I think that's why it was. I mean, for me, that's why the villain narrative sort of grew. But I respect Kevin Durant's decision in every way, shape, or form, and I will respect James Harden's decision as well. And if he can go and do the things that he was doing at OKC with the Nets, then happy days. Who's the leader of that team?
Does it matter?
Yes, of course it does. The Clippers are an exact reason as why that matters.
But I think that what's been preached, and Kyrie preached it, and I know your thoughts on it about the collaborative nature. Steve Nash brought that to the fore when he was hired as coach, and obviously the coaching collective. I think that it's going to be collaboration, leadership by collaboration, the coaching staff, the players. I think there's going to be some vet guys brought in, whether you retain a Garrett Temple after his team option is declined. I think that those vet guys, Jamal Crawford, if he's sticking around, you don't need sometimes the best player to be, as long as those guys are holding each other accountable, which I expect that they will. To be honest, if Kyrie's dribbling it 15 times and he's calling people out in the media or whatever, I think KD will hold him accountable. I think they've got an opportunity here that I like it when there's pot shots thrown the players at their way, especially when it's guys that are going to have a chip on their shoulder, and they don't necessarily need one in KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. I think that there's a lot of things to dissect here, Nick, and I don't want to give it too much because the news hasn't even happened yet. Yeah. And on next week's episode, we could be talking about this again. So We've got a little bit of time till you got to check that chicken, big fella. But let's get to some trade rumors. Let's get some cheeky little trade rumors. Now, there's a tweet there, Nick, from OTD Basketball from a couple of days ago. Now, obviously, there's plenty more trade rumors that have happened since then. Now, can you go through some of these names, and if any stick out to you and you want to talk about or go back and forth on, this isn't really abusing my Moscow. This is just like, there's so many goddamn trade rumors. Nick doesn't really keep up with the NBA unless I'm tweeting or DMing him. I need to give him some feedback, and I want to give our listeners and our viewers as well some feedback.
Well, I mean, the Drew Holiday rumors have been sort of circulating for a while. We spoke about Drew Holiday last week. Russell Westbrook obviously came out of it came out this week, and it feels like so much has already been said about that. It feels crazy. The Gordon Hayward one, and I sort of like a bit of the lesser ones. So like I enjoy sort of rumor milling like a Zach LaVine, or Dennis Schroeder as well. Yeah.
Okay, let's go. Yeah. What do we? It's Levine, Nicholas.
Levine. Sorry, I'm thinking of Maroon 4.
Adam Levine.
Maroon 4. That's the one. And one. I really, really liked him as a player. Obviously, I've got a bit of a... one of my best mates your brother goes for the Bulls. Obviously, a lot of Bulls sort of chatter, and such a big organization as well. And I always... the first thing that comes into my mind when I think of Zach LaVine is Levine. No, I got it right.
I got it right.
Is the start of the 2018 season?
He on the Bulls, or was he on the...
He was on the Bulls. He was on the Bulls. And he was like
18.
averaging 38 a game or something like that.
Yeah, it would have been 17 or 18 or 18, 19. I remember us talking about that.
Oh boy, he was electric. obviously that was his first major push into All-Star consideration. I think he got injured that season, so he didn't get in. He is a bigger piece than I think a lot of people are, even Bulls fans, are giving him credit for. I think there's something potentially big there, something like a
Booker?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say Victor Oladipo, but Oladipo was never sort of the number. Well, he was the number one at Magic, but he wasn't the number one at OKC. But like, I can see that sort of jump going to the right team. Like, I can definitely see, you know, he just say he moves, and then of course Zach LaVine's an all-star. That sort of shift in his dynamic, I can definitely see that.
Dallas are the rumor those playing along at home that have been rumored to be wanting his services.
He can definitely be a part of something bigger than the Bulls, which really isn't that big of a stretch to say. That being said, the Bulls are an interesting team this season. Drafting and seeing how things work with their front office, and so that the Bulls themselves could be the correct organization for LaVine. We'll have to wait and see. But I do like rumors around Zach LaVine, and generally they've been incorporating some of the other people on this list. I think I remember seeing a LaVine for Westbrook, maybe my memories
the only
fading
one I've heard around LaVine is to Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that one. That makes a lot of sense. I do like Victor Oladipo, especially lately with all of the comments coming out, which has been very.
Him recommitting himself, Nick, or do you think that is a ploy to reestablish his trade value within the organization? Because if him sort of like saying to the Knicks of all teams, and he's like, I want to play for you guys, to Miami, I want to play for you guys. Like, my guy, the Nets are down the road. Why don't you want to play for us instead of James Dolan and the Knicks? Dude.
Now, that's interesting. Victor Oladipo, instead of like James Harden, will satisfy every sort of qualm I had in the previous point with the whole
Oladipo
big
has gone downhill. James Harden is one of the best players in the league.
What were the problems that I said would happen with what might happen with the James Harden? The leadership, the off ball play. I guess the
is a way better off-ball player. Victor Oladipo is a better defender.
Not recently, Jack. This is what I mean. Like, literally, the highlights that we were playing next to us were all and 1-3s. That was like what I felt like every time I was saying it. The guy is static off-ball, and I don't buy. This is going back to the James Harden point, but I just want to say, and I don't buy in.
What is your Victor love? Where does it lie, and why are you intrigued about him?
Again, my brother goes for OKC, and when I was explaining to him about Victor Oladipo, and I was like, yeah, he was okay at the Magic, and come the second guy, maybe he can learn a lot from Westbrook, and then again, the first thing that pops into my mind for Victor Oladipo is that first season with Indiana. And I said it on this podcast, and a lot of people have been downplaying how good Victor Oladipo is. I said it on this podcast just a couple of weeks ago, saying that Victor Oladipo has trade value. And it seems like the overwhelming majority of NBA says he doesn't.
I think talent-wise, you're right, Nick, because he was all NBA caliber. He was incredible.
Good.
He was one of the top 15
and the injury is a concern for sure.
Clearly that's the biggest concern. What he showed in Orlando in the bubble wasn't necessarily the Victor Oladipo we know. And is that Victor Oladipo there? I don't know.
Motivation as well has a big deal with it as well. Like there's the whole thing of did he want to play in Orlando? Didn't he? Performances like that can come on. Mismanagement of injuries. We saw that with the Spurs and Kawhi. Can really fracture relationships between organizations.
One thing I will say about his trade value, though, as well, Nick, is that he's an expiring contract. So a team that is willing to get him, as an expiring deal, you obviously are trading for a minimum of 1 year, but you're hoping that he recommits to the team. Now, that's where, if you hypothetically, Karis LeVert were to be traded, he's still got a couple of years left on his deal. Spencer Dinwiddie, meanwhile, is an expiring contract, and you would have to re-sign him for probably $15 to $20 million a season. So the the longevity of their contract and those sort of minutiae that are boring at the end of the day, but they do matter. Like if you're a Knicks, you're not giving up, some coveted pieces like a Mitchell Robinson or an RJ Barrett or, your number 8 pick this season for it, because it makes no sense. Because of the value you're getting in return is basically one season of Victor Oladipo. It's not like the Los Angeles Lakers where they gave up the farm, despite the fact that Anthony Davis has opted out. We expect him to, as I've alluded to on the outlet in the free agency special that we did, he's going to do a 2+1 so he can get the maximum amount of money. But, Nick, before we get to more trade rumors, we might move on. You got to check that chicken, big boy.
I got to check that chicken. We'll be right back. And we are back. Chicken is a cooking, Jackie boy. It is... Got some Moroccan seasoning on there. It's got some roast vegetables in the oven. It's going to be a great dinner. It is 6:30 p.m. in Australia right now. So we're creeping over dinner time. But the things I do for the pod, Jackie boy, the things I do for the pod. Where are we? I'm lost.
Russell Westbrook is a top 10 player in the NBA, Nicholas.
This is, I don't know. A bit sour. I think the world is a little bit sour on Russell Westbrook after the bubble sort of performances, and it's not made any better given that we're not seeing any basketball, and he's saying all of this stuff and, wanting to leave, and, there's the whole existential crisis with him of whether he can come off the bench in a sort of support role, because that's where a lot of people see him playing now. Whether he can lead a team, he had that good stretch with the Rockets in the middle of the season before the lockdown, where he sort of forsaked, whatever, the 3-point shot, and continued driving to the basket. We can see his highlight reels now, and you're not going to see many of those highlights from beyond the arc. That is for sure. Is he a top 10 player in the NBA? I would say no, not right now. But he can certainly break back into there.
I don't think so. Top 10 right now, Nick, is stacked.
Mid-season, Russell Westbrook was a top 10 player in the NBA.
So
he was an All-NBA player.
Let's deepen the criteria a little bit. Let's make it a bit easy for him. So you said he was an All-NBA player at that point.
Yes.
Out of players...
Clearly, he made the team.
Did he make All-NBA this year? Oh my God, that's a travesty, because
yes,
I would have had above. Yeah. I thought it was Ben Simmons that made it above him.
I'm fairly sure that he was one of the last spots to get in, and people were just because I was saying that Bradley Beal should have gotten over Westbrook. I will look it up. Yeah. You keep talking.
Okay, so while I think that there's a chance he can re-establish himself, I think this is a conversation that we had in relation to comparing him to Jamal Murray. Now, and obviously in career on the incline and decline. Mm-hmm. Top 10 is just way far-fetched, and this is via some takesman on Twitter that I'm not going to give any credit for. But he can be a very, very good player, but his best years are far, far behind him. To be a top 10 player in the NBA right now, you have to be better than the likes of Anthony Davis, James Harden, Luka Doncic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant.
I'm just going to float this around. You can't see it, but the All-NBA third team with Russell Westbrook on it and Ben Simmons.
It does have both of them on it. See, Bradley Beal's a top 10, top 15 player. I just can't see it, Nick. And while he was an All-NBA player, I think he was an All-NBA player based off 30 freaking games, to be honest. If you had to take it into account as well, the bubble environment, which, we found out that he had COVID, he was overcoming the calf injury and stuff. So it's like I'm going to sound so freaking white here. The age-old adage, will the real Russell Westbrook please stand up? Because, yes, they're not the best. Let's go back to the 9-minute mark where I'm ranting about James Harden. That's me in podcast winning form. But I can't see, Nick. I'm a Russell Westbrook skeptic, I know, but it's weird because in the past, I've been you and you've been me, and we've kind of switched tack. You're like a James Harden hater, and you're a James Harden lover, and then you're a Russell Westbrook believer. It's amazing how times can change. What a world we live in.
Off-season is a weird time of year, Jackie boy. We don't know ourselves. It's all right. NBA will be back soon enough. Yeah, I mean, I've been one of Russell Westbrook's biggest sort of critics over the years. Obviously, his rise to power wasn't all that impressive. I mean, it was impressive. It was impressive, but you know, I was on to James Harden at that point. That being said, we caught a glimpse of Russell Westbrook that we thought wasn't going to happen, because a lot of it comes down to maturity with him. And, you know, he's not a young man. He's like 31, 30.
Yeah, his birthday was the other day. I think he's 31. Yeah. Or he's 30.
Something like that. Certainly starting to get beyond his prime. That being said, maybe that's why he's trying to transition into the three-point shot. It's just not there. It's not there. If we can see more of the Russell Westbrook that we saw in that midseason, who takes on more of the ball, who doesn't settle for jumpers, because it's an ugly looking jumper as well. Like, I mean, I can't imagine a drastic improve of percentage just by sheer practice. There's mechanically something like an issue there. Russell Westbrook can still bring it defensively. He's still dynamic on.
No, I disagree on that.
Yes, he can. He's one of the best shot blocking guards in the league.
I disagree on that, but it is what it is.
Agree to disagree.
He can still. It's still there. Like, I think it's clearly waning, and as a shot blocking guard, maybe he does it one every 40 games. Like, the best game that he's ever played defensively was against James Harden, his now teammate. If you're thinking of defensive highlights, I can think more of John Wall and his defensive highlights than I can think of Russell Westbrook and his defensive highlights. This
is the thing. I would put them both in the same vein. You see a lot of chase down blocks from Russell Westbrook. You see a lot of, obviously, defensive rebounds, the less sexy part of defense, but still counts. You know, all of these points, his hustle is just part of the defense. I think he hustles
when he wants to hustle. I think it's selective hustle, and it's more offensive hustle when he gets a chance to shoot a mid-range jumper off the glass and it turns into a brick. That's when we see hustle. I think he's lazy.
Roles really are reversed, Jackie boy.
It really has. It's funny how times have changed. Now, I hear what you're saying in certain respects, Nick. But also, this season, when we did see the best version of Russell Westbrook, they didn't have a center. The Houston Rockets didn't even have a freaking center. Now, if he were to go to an opposing team, Detroit, Charlotte, New York, or whatever, who have traditional centers, and you clog the floor even more from him, you are going to see an even worse version of Russell Westbrook than we have seen in many a year. Stop shaking your head.
No, Jackie boy.
Like me, you bum.
John Wall, Marcin Gortat, it's not like he hasn't played with a center before, Steven Adams, and turned Steven Adams into an absolute beast. Like, the guy is still a point guard.
Steven Adams cleaned up all of his shots with offensive rebounds.
There is a reason that these guards compare so well with centers. It's because you see those little shovel passes that you can get from penetration, and you draw defenses to you.
Russell Westbrook doesn't do that.
Russell Westbrook does do that. One of his most famous highlights is this little sham god that absolutely during his MVP season, his little sham god move that absolutely fooled the defense and then shovel pass to Adams for the flush is one of his best assists, and it will be on his career highlight reel for sure. The guy can pass, and the guy can pass 2 feet to a center inside because he's drawn the defense, because he's so dynamic that he can break through that front line of offense.
Yeah, but the thing is, these days, Nick, that defense is going to be like 8 foot away from him, and they're going to ask you to drive into him. And with the waning athleticism, now I'm not saying, anyone that's over 30 is completely beyond the hill, because I would be discrediting my own self here. And, basketball's back next week. The COVID restrictions are lifting. I'm going to have my hops. My hops are going to be back, Nick. I'm doing the hits workouts. My legs are good, doing some squat jumps. And I'm sure Russell Westbrook's doing plenty of squat jumps as well. That man works out like an absolute madman. But it's just crazy how times have changed so much that we've flipped. We're going to have to put this out as a little bit of a clip during the week. But we need to move on, and we need to get to draft talk, Nick, because you are an expert on the draft. You are Jonathan Gavoni, Kevin O'Connor, Kyle Mann, Alec Leach, Joe Money McCarr, Dalton Pence, all in one with your draft analysis. Give me some draft analysis with this one, Nicholas. LaMelo Ball is the best player in the 2020 draft class.
My draft knowledge is so insane that I knew 2 names that you just rattled off then. All the other, obviously those draft experts.
I'm assuming those 2 names were Alec Leach and Joe Money McCarr, who are both great writers at OTGBasketball.com.
Of course. Sorry, yes, 4. The 4, I've just been caught out. 4 names then. LaMelo Ball is the best player in the 2020 draft class. I don't fucking know.
Play the highlights, Nick. You can watch him while we're talking.
I was watching him a little bit before while you were doing your exercise. I was watching some of the videos. Hold on, let me get it up. Yep. And it's hard. It is hard because I feel like these highlight reels set me up to like them. Maybe that's why I was siding so far with Russell Westbrook.
Played in the NBL.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, the NBL. You know, a lot of things have been said about the NBL and how, especially from Americans, saying how the NBL is a good league, but it's like it's a good, strong league, and my word, it is a strong league.
Physical,
I'll give him that. Oh my, yes, they do not, they don't mess around with how hard they foul, how hard they celebrate. I'm fairly sure it's not a tech to celebrate in someone's face. Because I saw it and it didn't get called. I'm like, that must be a rule. Anyway, so it's a hard league, and it's one of the best leagues in the world. That is true, but it is still light years away from the NBA, and I think this is the point that needs to be taken because a lot of people have been saying, yes, he played in the NBL. And, you know, they're one of the best pro leagues in the world. Very true. But the NBA is so far above the rest of the world, it's not even fair. It's ridiculous. When you look at the skill level, I mean, the fact that a college kid, or what should have been a college kid, can come in, run a team. Granted, that team wasn't great. The Illawarra Hawks were not. I think they actually finished last. But can pull off some insane 30-plus point triple doubles in this league. I thought it sort of speaks volumes to, I guess, the lack of skill, but they make up for it in physicality of this league. Is he the best player in the draft? I mean, I honestly can't answer that. He is a from what I've heard from from you guys that you said, I've listened to a few podcasts and stuff. A lot of people are high, a lot of people are low. A lot of people are high on James Wiseman. A lot of people are low on James Wiseman. You know, this is possibly the most split I've seen a draft be.
Since the Anthony Bennett one, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess so. And this could very well turn into a fact, especially if it's, you know, I've said it. I've probably said it every podcast for the last 5 weeks. Getting drafted in the right place is so freaking important. It is more important than the player itself. And so a lot of people are saying that Golden State would be the best sort of basketball fit for him, whereas it might not be the best basketball
in Minnesota.
Yeah, strategist move for definitely than Minnesota. No one should go to Minnesota. They need to make some serious changes front office and you know.
They have.
I guess they have. Yeah, they have.
Just on Rosas.
Yeah, so serious changes need to happen there for anyone to draft there because you can be a good team, but if your culture's shit, then you're gonna breed shit. And,
yeah, I mean,
you know, that's a bit crass, but
yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I mean, Towns has been really, really good. Wiggins obviously is an aberration.
But how good could Towns be? If he was drafted in a better situation, at someone like the Warriors, that would be insane. There's an example of a hard foul right there. I know you can't see it.
Yeah,
you know, you push someone during a drive and they just go flying to you. That's NBL. That's NBL.
It's a hard league. Now, I've been paying a little bit more attention to the draft a little bit. Did a draft pod for the Brooklyn Bars on prospects there. Now, the Nets have the 19th pick, and I don't think there's a couple of names that they're looking at that could end up actually being one of the better players in the draft. And the name that springs to mind is Alexei Pokusevski. Poku, I think is his nickname.
I have heard his name bounce around. Yeah.
If you Google his name, he's one of the skinniest people I've seen on this earth.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I do. Yeah. I have heard chatter about him.
Plays like freaking, I don't know, Kyrie Irving with his handle, his passing, and his shot. He plays like a guard. And those sort of swings, like we saw with Giannis in the draft a couple of years ago, I think it was a 14 or 13 draft, and he turned into, obviously the best player in the league, despite, the MVP of the league, despite being taken with pick 15 or 10 or whatever it was back in the day. Same with Kawhi Leonard. So, I think that this draft we could see that. I think LaMelo Ball has the best skill out of anyone in the current draft right now, and that transcendent skill is his passing. He is sublime. He is an absolutely sublime passer. Now, how much value does that play into the NBA? Not a heap. And if you're looking at shot creation, he's really, really good. I think Anthony Edwards is a little bit better, and maybe Anthony Edwards ends up being the best player in this draft. Maybe James Wiseman turns into Rudy Gobert and proves himself to be the best player in this class. Or he ends up being closer to an Anthony Davis, which some people have touted him as. I don't see that necessarily. I think Anthony Davis was a bona fide number one prospect, and we've seen that from him, even in New Orleans.
There was no doubt about him when he got drafted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, there's other names as well, that you can probably spring to mind. There's a lot of fans of Denny Avdija. There's a lot of fans of Tyrese Halliburton. These sort of names that I think that we are probably more likely to see names in the latter part of the lottery, first round, even late first round, where we see a guy pop and go, well, we should have seen that because there wasn't necessarily a consensus at the top like there was last year with Ja Morant and Zion Williamson, where you just know, yep, these are the guys. This year we don't know who the guys are. Yeah. People, Minnesota and Golden State are still looking to trade their picks. Now, I assume LaMelo will be number one, and I think he has a real chance to be a special player in this league, whether it's like a juiced up Rajon Rondo. The dude's 6'7". He could play some defense. Ben Simmons was looked at as a negative defensive player in college, turns into one of the most valuable, best versatile defenders.
Is that right? Is that right? Wow.
He's an absolute trash defender because he just didn't want to play defense. He just didn't care. Now, at the end of the day, the NBA breeding ground, Philadelphia was good for him and the rest of it. But yeah, I'm going to go Wikipedia fact on this, Nick, because of like I mentioned, his transcendent passing skill. But also some of those other names that I've mentioned could quite easily. We could see names, in the second round, like a Nikola Jokic pop off, who ultimately this draft is a crapshoot in a lot of different ways. And, in a couple of days, we'll find out if our takes are right about who is taken where and all those different sort of things. But we got one final topic, Nicholas, and I don't necessarily want to speak about it, but I love talking down on people who are goddamn stupid. And speaking of goddamn stupidity, Kyle Kuzma needs to shut his goddamn mouth.
Jackie boy, Kyle Kuzma should shut his mouth at the best of times. But what's he's been saying, Jackie boy?
He's been ranting about COVID-19. Now, if you want to click on the article, Nick, you can show some people about what he sort of said, different sort of tweets. Are you guys cool with the country shutting down 2 to 4 weeks? We're living in Melbourne right now, and we shut down for months. And the results have been astronomical in the sense that it has been 16, 17 days where we have had donuts, zero deaths. That's what happens when you have a buy-in of a shutdown. Now, when a shutdown happens and you still have people going out, people not wearing masks and stuff, then yeah, a shutdown doesn't work. It requires a collective buy-in from a city. The bullshit that Kyle Kuzma is spewing here by posing this dumb, illiterate rhetoric, it makes it worse than people who are almost conspiracy theorists, who are just so one way and like, masks don't matter. But like this sort of dumb speculation, it makes me really, really angry, Nick. Like I just can't stand it because it's when you have that sort of platform, and then also the dude lived inside a bubble where they saw what a shutdown, what a lockdown sort of was in Orlando, where they got unlimited testing, people were wearing masks, and we saw that there were no cases for the players and the staff outside of people behind the scenes. And it just, I don't get it. I don't get it. And you've seen some of the tweets here, but Americans can't live inside a bubble. We were very fortunate, and quite frankly, that's only we could control a spread. I don't see any other way. There you go. Talking down to people as well, like I don't mind when people talk down to people when they have intelligence and when they're providing facts and when they're providing evidence. But when you're spewing utter shite, the way that Kyle Kuzma and his 8 points a game on 14 shots do, I can't stand it. It's just it really makes me angry because people listen to athletes and listen to this 8th best player on the championship team, this dickhead. I hope he gets traded to Detroit or Charlotte and he becomes insignificant because his opinions deserve to be insignificant. And I'm sorry that I brought them up, but we like attacking stupidity and bringing it to the light and showing its true flaws and putting it out there in the ether. He's a goddamn idiot, Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be an overwhelming population in America as well because, you know, there are examples of, you know, the shutting down, and it sucked. It sucked here in Australia, and, you know, all I heard were people complaining about the shutdown. But I mean, the results are there to speak for themselves. I mean, New Zealand did it, and the New Zealand acted very swiftly.
Similar. Yep.
The UK and the Australia were sort of pretty even fields, and we decided to go full lockdown, and we're down to the cases we are, and the UK decided against that, and they are where they are, you know, like, which is obviously not good. Sorry, I should have prefaced that. And so, I mean, it proves to work. There is the argument that, you know, will it work in America? Who knows? Massively large population in the States, which can affect things. Obviously, it's easier to govern a lockdown if your country's a bit smaller. I don't know what's going on with your video, Jackie boy, but it's not something on your end. It's something on my end. You've like resized and everything. It's got to trip people out. Anyway, so I mean, it's proven in other countries, smaller countries. The harm is, I guess, economic growth, and you know, you're already facing another recession. But I guess how highly do you value human life? And obviously not that highly, Kyle Kuzma.
Evidently.
Yeah.
Because it comes from a privileged standpoint as well. Like, that's what makes me even angrier. Like, because you're coming from a standpoint where you've experienced, like I mentioned, what a lockdown does look like and what a controlled environment does look like. And you're speaking against it despite the fact that you saw the results of what actually happened. And you're coming from a standpoint where it's just like, look, the people that would really suffer during a lockdown and have suffered during a lockdown worldwide are people that don't have the money and privilege and success that you do. You've got millions of dollars. You're probably living in some LA mansion, got an awesome Instagram girlfriend, living inside a house there for months and months on end and ordering Postmates and delivery or whatever. That ain't a big deal for you. But the people who have to really endure hardships, economic, mental, physical, and otherwise, those are the people that should be saying these sort of things. And I would listen to, because for them, there is a true trying nature. There is a true negativity to a lockdown, and we've experienced it. You know, we suffered a little bit, but at the end of the day, we're lucky. You know, we've still got our jobs, we've still got roofs over our heads, and that at the end of the day matters. And I don't like it, Nick, and I wanted to bring it to the fore. I know we talk about some non-basketball stuff on this podcast, and that's just one thing I saw, and I'm like, you know what? I'm calling out an idiot, and I will continue to call out idiots on this podcast. Kyle Kuzma, you're a goddamn idiot.
Good call, Jackie boy. We doing some off topic?
How much time we got, buddy boy? You want to do some off topic, or do you want to? Is that chicken going to be ready soon?
The chicken is going to be ready soon. You know what? We might leave the off topic for another week. The beautiful thing about off topic is that they can be recycled, and you know, they're not time dependent. So that just about does it for another week. So I'd just like to say thank you for tuning in to Just Ball Things. As always, you can catch us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Player FM, Spreaker, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to your podcast, we will be there. If you are listening on Apple, do us a solid and leave us a rating and review. 5 stars, helps us out a bunch. If you're catching us on the YouTubes, then hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when fresh content comes out by the OTG network. So remember, it's you guys that make the show great, so we appreciate any and every post heading our way. So until next week.
Keep masking up, superstars.